The FSO workbook is your tool. It's your survival tool as an FSO to get the job done. Now, whether or not you're a do-it-yourself FSO or you have that outsource FSO or fractional FSO support, maintain your FSO workbook in a place that is secure and where you know where everything is. Why is the FSO workbook so important? It's because this is where you're going to draw your information from when your DCSA rep is doing an audit or a review. This is where you're going to maintain all of your information and be able to do your checks on knowledge checks on tasks. For example, your training records will be in here. Your cleared employees training records will be in here, as well as any facility documents that are updated, or if you do a change condition package in this, or you need to update information in this, it should come from this FSO workbook. This should be in one location where it's maintained, but then prior to the DCS review, I recommend that you print it off. The reason we need it printed is so that you are not showing your files during the DCSA review that are online, or if your computer does a restart or a hard boot or something goes down in your network, you won't be able to access these files. Printing it out in the old school way and putting it in a 3D binder, good enough. But whatever works for you, the key point is to maintain this workbook as a living document where information gets updated regularly. So now that we have that established, let me tell you what should be in this FSO workbook. One of the first things you need is a place to put your DD Forms 254. Now, as I go down this list, I have my own workbook that I'm looking at. I'm giving the topics by alphabetical order, so they don't have to be in any particular order. I'm just going down the list. The first should be your DD Forms 254. These are your authorizations to work on classified contracts, and it tells you what classification level is, where the work is to be farmed, and many, many other things. You put your current DD Forms 254. If you're a prime contractor, what you get from the government. If you're a subcontractor, you need to put those 254s in that you got from your prime contractor. If you're subbing, you need to put those 254s in that you deliver to your subcontractors. The reason this is important is because DCSA will review your 254s and crosswalk them against the work that you're doing and the cleared employees that you have. These 254s are also important to be in here because prior to your inspection, your rep will want you to upload these 254s into the NIST system and do a facility update. So now you have one place where they all are. It's in a protected environment on your network. And then when necessary, you can upload them into this. The next set of documents is a folder that I have entitled Facility Clearance Documents, or FCL documents. And in there, you're going to have your DD Form 441. And it is the non-disclosure agreement between the organization and the U.S. government. The U.S. government says it will provide classified information to the organization and that they will provide oversight. And then the organization will sign the form saying, yes, we will receive classified information and we will protect it during the time that we have that. This form needs to be updated. It's usually good for one time, unless, and these are the times that this needs to be updated. One, you get a change in the company name. You get a change in the company location. But one thing that is important is you make sure DCSA signs it. There are many times when they do not, so you might just have to contact your rep if they have not signed this document and ask them to sign it for you. And whatever form they sign needs to be the latest update. Now, the next form is the 328. The 328 is the Foreign Ownership, Control, and Influence form that you should complete with your leadership and other KMP. This is something the FSO may not know offhand, unless, of course, the FSO is leadership for the company or owns the company. You may need help filling this one out because it determines level, if you are in at what level you are under Foreign Ownership, Control, and Influence. Again, this form needs to be filled out once and then updated as necessary. This is one of those forms as well that you will upload during your facility update that the DCSA will want you to do before their audit. The next set of folders is maybe personnel files. You might already have that maintained in a database, but sometimes DCSA wants to see a subject report. And then so you can dump your subject report in there and have it ready to present. Some people actually might include all of their employee files in there with the employees training, any information that you might need on your employees individually. You may already have this maintained on a database, such as if you use PeopleSoft or if you use MathCraft or SIM software or something else. You may not need a personnel security or a personnel files folder. But if you don't have any other way of keeping it up, you can put your cleared employees information in this personnel files folder. Again, this should be RNA protected network. So policies and procedures. You may have a lot of policies and procedures concerning security. We recommend that you put it in a policies and procedures folder for presentation to DCSA, as well as make them available to your employees so they can be part of your security culture. One of the things that is hard to demonstrate is that security culture that you're trying to establish. Employees should have access not only to clear employee training, but to the policies that you put out. And in this folder, you may have subfolders. One called the Feed 3 reporting policy. You should have a policy in your organization that demonstrates the reportable information your employees are required to provide to you. This policy should be in that policy and procedures folder. The next policy and procedures that should be in there are the standard practices and procedures, basically your security program operations manual. This should be provided to your employees as well. Both of these documents so far should be signed by the senior management official and the FSO. That shows that your leadership is directing this security program and they support it and they will continue to do so with resources and backup to the FSO. And the final document that we recommend is the insider threat program policy. You may put that in there for your employees to read. Additional documents might be whatever you have that may be appropriate. Maybe your security system procedures or your SSP, and maybe your insider threat program working group policy. These are just some minimums and some examples you might have in there. At any rate, DCSA is going to ask you to At any rate, DCSA is going to want to look at these policies and procedures, make sure they're available and in hand, and also be able to answer that question. Do your employees have access to this? You can put the policy on your server for the employees to be able to read. You can email them to them or print them out for them. The next one is the security vulnerability assessment. Any past assessments, and DCSA is going to want to review past assessments, at least your latest one, and see what you put in place. If they had any administrative findings or vulnerabilities that you've mitigated, you want to keep those in those files. DCSA probably has records of it, but they will want to see them when they come and look at your organization. And if you've mitigated them, you want to make sure they're continuously mitigated. Mitigate it once and they find these vulnerabilities again, you might have a systematic issue. So it's good to have these security vulnerability assessments or VARs in a folder that you can refer to regularly. You might even want to check them against your self-inspections or against any security by walking around that you do, just to make sure there are no systematic errors in place that keep you or your organization repeating these old offenses. The other important part is the self-inspection program. Again, if you find any vulnerabilities or administrative findings or observations in these, go ahead and document them. This self-inspection program should be conducted using the self-inspection handbook for NISP contractors. We at NISPOM Central provide print copies of NISPOM and ITAR, as well as books that I've written. But one thing I do want to point out, we do have a hard copy of the self-inspection handbook for NISP contractors that you can purchase and do it by hand. However, we do recommend that you use the online version as well, provided by DCSA, because it populates in certain areas. So you can take the book, the hard book, and walk around and fill it out, but then go ahead and go back and transcribe it onto the downloadable book provided by DCSA. And then you want to go and inspect your program. You want to inspect it against all those folders that you've already created. So this workbook, this self-inspection handbook, will crosswalk to the folders, because in the folders, you'll have all those artifacts that either demonstrate compliance or demonstrate you have areas that need improvement. Now, the self-inspection handbook is required to be used. The self-inspection is required once a year. It should be once a year at the same time. So if you did it last year in August, make sure you do it again this year in August. It's very important. DCSA wants to see consistency. Without that consistency, you could have vulnerabilities or administrative findings. Even though it's due in August, don't do it in August. Do it throughout the year. Make sure that it is another living document that you continue to complete and fill out. Another folder you might want to have are reports or notifications. You want to keep records of notification or reports that your employees provide to you, and any reports that you have to submit up to DCSA. Common reports that you might want to keep track of, that DIS is keeping track of, is foreign travel. So when an employee requests foreign travel, have a form for them to fill it out, keep that form on file, as well as when they return, they get their foreign travel debriefing. And finally, you want to have folders for training and briefings. In that folder, you want to have all the NISPA required training that your cleared employees are to undertake. Again, this training should be at a specific time of year. So some FSOs do security awareness training in the first quarter, and then they might be, if they don't combine security awareness training with any other training, they might have an insider threat training in the second quarter. But there's other retraining that is required for some employees, and that is derivative classifier training. And you may have NATO training, CINWITI training, or other specialties training. This folder is for you to keep the training in. So you want to keep, if you have online training or some other training that you deliver to your employees, you'll want to have some kind of artifact of what is in that training, so DCSA can review it and make sure all of the criteria are met for that training. And then you want to have another folder for briefings and debriefings. And in this folder, you want to have records of the employees that completed the required training. Additionally, in these records, you want to keep records that they received their debriefings. Debriefings are very important. DCSA will want to know that even though you went in and did debriefings in DIS and removed access, you should have some artifact that demonstrates that your employees did have a debriefing and what date that debriefing was accomplished. That's the FSO workbook, your toolkit, your survival tool to ensure that you are running a security program and collecting artifacts that demonstrate compliance to those security programs, as well as demonstrate what you are doing well and some areas that you may need to make improvements on. Again, this workbook, FSO workbook, should crosswalk with the self-inspection program and the other leg of the stool that I was telling you about that is called the gold standard criteria. Any questions? Contact me on this platform. Send me an email, go to my website, or make comments. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you for your support, and I hope that this video has helped you.